Hello everyone, today I am going to tell you about a new feature in Dynamics 365 Sales. In the latest version, deal analysis is powered by the Sales Close agent. In this video, we'll focus on the research mode. This agent is an intelligent analytical assistant that helps the sales team assess the actual status of active deals, understand why some opportunities are moving slowly, and identify factors that may influence their closure. The goal of Sales Close Agent is not just to show that an opportunity is open or at a certain stage, but to explain exactly what is happening with the deal, why it might be delayed or at risk, and what the manager needs to pay attention to before taking the next steps. The following licenses are required for this agent to work: Dynamics 365 Premium or Enterprise, a Copilot Studio license, and a user license for access to the agent settings and Copilot capabilities. You can either purchase Copilot credit capacity packs in advance or pay for actual usage via pay-as-you-go, depending on your usage volume. Copilot credit capacity packs are cost-effective every month when there are many deals and requests, because any unused portion at the end of the month does not roll over to the next month and is verified. With pay-as-you-go, you pay only for what you use each month up to 18,000 requests. To view the agent performance results, the sales team doesn't need to purchase a separate Copilot Studio license. Dynamics 365 Sales or Enterprise with the appropriate access right is sufficient. The agent works on the opportunity card. As soon as new opportunity is created, the agent's work begins. The agent analyzes CRM data-related activities, emails, meetings, and notes. Based on this, it generates insights directly within the opportunity card, highlighting risks, signals, context, and the overall status of the deal. This saves the manager time, as there is no need to manually look for information across different tabs, emails, activities, and related records. Simply open the page with the agent's insights, and the key information is already compiled in one place. We can see that at the top of the opportunity form header, the agent has already processed this opportunity and provides us with intel information, noting in the summary at the top and what the agent considers to be red flags. To view all the information the agent has generated and collected, click See Full Research. This opens the full form. The screen displays 6 main sections, each generated automatically based on the results of the opportunity analysis. When a manager opens any deal, the manager usually spends time trying to understand the situation, reviewing emails, tracking activities, identifying the decision maker, accessing risks, and figuring out what is the actual happening with the client. In this case, the agent does this instead of the manager. They open a separate page with the deal analysis, which immediately shows the big picture: how risky the deal is, how important it is, and when the analysis was last updated. In other words, the manager doesn't need to put the puzzle together. They can immediately see whether this is a deal that requires attention. Next, the agent moves on to the most important part. It doesn't just point out this risk, but explains why. For example, in this case, he sees that there is no confirmed decision maker, and it's unclear who makes the final decision, and he immediately suggests what to do about who contact and what to clarify. In other words, this is no longer just analytics, but specific next steps for the manager. After that, the agent provides a brief summary of the deal's status. And here is the key point: it's not just a status update, but an explanation. The deal's in the early stages, there is little activity, not enough contacts, and the decision-making process aren't defined. This is exactly the kind of the context that manager usually spends time gathering manually. Next, the agent highlights key signals, for example, that reliability, service, and cost reduction are important to the client, and that there is strong competition. This means the manager immediately understands what to base their communication on and what arguments to use. Separately, the agent breaks down the situation in more detail: who is involved in the deal, what their roles are, and whether there is a person who actually makes the decision. In this example, it's clear that a contact exists, but they have no influence on the final decision, and this poses a direct risk to the deal. He also highlights the client's needs, what exactly is important to them. For example, cost reduction, reliable transportation, or service support. This gives the manager an understanding of how to position the product correctly. Next is a very important section, competition. The agent doesn't just say there are competitors. Agents explain exactly who we're competing against and how we can win. In other words, this is already helpful in preparing for the actual conversation with the client. And one of the strongest points is the overall health of the deal. Here the agent clearly shows what is going well and what is blocking the close. For example, there is a need, but there is no decision maker, or the decision-making process is undefined. These are the things that directly influence whether the deal will close. And at the end, it adds the overall context about the company, what it does, what its priorities are, and how it operates. In other words, the manager receives not just data from the CRM, but a complete picture of the client. Ultimately, here's what this does for the business. The manager doesn't waste time on analysis, doesn't miss critical details, and understands more quickly what to do next with the deal. And this directly impacts the speed and quality of the sales work. Next, we move on to the agent settings. To do this, switch to the App Settings section. This opens a new page for the Dynamics 365 AI Hub, the central hub where you can create, configure, and view agents for Dynamics 365 sales. On this page, we see two main sections. The first is Agent Management, where you can create a new agent or open existing settings. The second is the Analytics section, where you can view information about agent performance. We'll return to this later. There are also training materials on available agents below. To access the settings, click Create and Manage Agents. In our case, the closed sales agent has already been created and enabled, so we open it to view its settings. If the agent hasn't been created yet, you can create it using Create button. On the first settings page, we select the agent workflow. In this demo, we are focusing specifically on research mode, deal analysis. This workflow helps identify important deals, highlight risk early, analyze customer interactions, the competitive landscape, and generate useful insight for the sales manager. Below, the system displays the prerequisites for the agent to function. In our case, two key components are visible: Bing Research and Microsoft 365 Service. Bing Research is needed so that the agent can find additional information from available sources and use it in the analysis. Microsoft 365 Service are required to access email data and related interactions so that the agent can take into account emails, meetings, and other data that helps assess risks and the current status of the deal. After verifying these prerequisites, click Continue and proceed to the next settings. In the Agent Profile section, we set the basic parameters: the agent's name and the language it will use. Currently, only English is available, so the analysis results are displayed in English. As a temporary solution, you can use the browser's translation in the language you need. Next, we move on the Company Info section. Here we enter the company name, website, and a description of our value proposition. That is, what exactly we sell and why it matters to the client. This description must be filled out carefully, because the agent uses it as a basis for analyzing deals. Agent compares the client's needs with what the company offers and based on this formulate conclusions, risk, and potential arguments for the manager. It's important to describe not just we sell trucks, but specifically the business value, reliable transportation, service support, and so on. The more accurately we describe the product's value, the better the agent will be able to understand whether our offer meets the needs of the specific client and which strengths should be highlighted in the deal analysis. In this section, we configure the criteria for selection deals that the agent will work with. For example, you can configure the agent to analyze only open deals with a specific client type or only deals in a specific market or segment. Condition can be built not only based on the deals or on fields but also on related tables via add related entity. For example, you can add a condition based on a related company, contact, or other record linked to the deal. For example, an agent can analyze only open deals whether the related company belongs to the logistic industry or only those deals where the contact has a specific role in the purchasing process. There is also a separate parameter, consider opportunities created in the last. Here you can specify the time period for the deals that the agent will include in the analysis. The maximum value is 30 days. It's also very convenient that before running the analysis, you can click Preview to see exactly which deals fall into the segment. If you see that the sample is too broad or doesn't meet your expectation, you can adjust the criteria immediately. Next, we move on to the settings, the agent's update frequency, refresh frequency. Here we determine how often the agent will update the deal analytics. There are several options: a one-time analysis or regular updates every few days, once a week, or less frequently. This directly affects resource usage. The more often the agent updates, the more Copilot resources are used. It's important to find a balance here. If the market is changing rapidly, it makes sense to choose more frequent updates. But if deals are long-term and stable, less frequent updates are sufficient. There is also a separate message consumption limit section. It allows you to control exactly how many resources an agent can use. If you go to Manage Limits, a separate page opens where you can see usage for each agent, how much has already been used, what credits are available, and if necessary, you can set limits. This is important for cost control. Next, we move onto the Opportunity Assessment section. Here we specify which fields the agent will use to assess the deal, specify the amount and date. It's important to know that you can't select just any field here. The system automatically displays only those fields that match the type. For example, for the amount, these are monetary fields such as revenue, total amount. And for the date, these are date fields such as close date, actual close date, or create on, and others. These settings are necessary for the agent to accurately assess the importance and risk of a deal. For example, if a deal involves a large amount and has a close closing date, but there is a little activity or key roles are missing, the agent will flag that it's a priority and high-risk deal. Next, we move on to the Research section. Here you configure how the agent will research deals and what additional sources it can use to form conclusions. By default, the agent already performs research automatically, but these settings allow for a deeper analysis that is more tailored to your specific business. The first section is Enrich Research with Knowledge Sources. Here you can expand the agent's research with additional knowledge sources that are relevant specifically for your company. Next, we see the Company Research section. It's responsible for analyzing the client company, industry, company size, location, strategy, financial metrics, and recent news. For example, if the agent is analyzing a logistic company, it can take into account its line of business, geographic scope, signs of business growth, or financial indicators. In this section, you can add knowledge resource to generate insights. By default, the agent uses open web sources, but we can add additional sources via Copilot Studio. The agent will evaluate the available sources and select the most relevant ones for the specific analysis. The next section is Competitor Research. It's used to analyze competitors, their strengths and weakness, as well as to develop arguments for a specific deal. Here you can add up to 3 key competitors. If a competitor is already mentioned in the deal or interactions with the clients, the agent will prioritize researching that competitor. If no competitors are found in the data, the agent will focus on the list we are specified here. For example, if we sell trucks, we can add Volvo trucks and so on. The agent will then be able to compare our offer with these competitors and suggest to the manager which advantages to emphasize. Further down in this same section, you can add knowledge sources for competitive analysis. These can be presentations, documents, comparative. A very important point is roles. If there is no decision maker in the deal or no key contact has been identified, the agent will flag this as a risk and the manager immediately understands what needs to be done next. The following factors are also taken into account. The deal has been stuck at the same stage for too long. There are objections in communication, for example, regarding price or budget. Key fields such as budget or requirements are not filled out. Competitors are mentioned, or the event negative news about the client's company. In other words, the agent takes a comprehensive look at the deal and flags potential issues before the deal actually falls through. And most importantly, these criteria can be customized. This means you can configure them so that the agent evaluates deals exactly as your company does. Next, we move on to the important criteria section. Here we determine which deals are priority for us. In other words, while the previous section focused on risks, this one focuses on the deal's value to the business. By default, the agent already has a set of criteria, but this can also be modified or disabled. For example, a deal automatically receives a higher priority if it involves an existing client, or if client has a historically high percentage of won deals. That's also a signal that's worth paying more attention to. The deal size is considered separately. If the amount is higher than average, the agent will highlight it as a higher priority. Strategic clients, large companies, or situations where senior management is involved in the deal, that is, when decisions are made at high level, are also considered important. In other words, the agent doesn't just analyze all deals equally. It suggests which ones to focus on first. At the bottom, there are custom importance criteria. Here you can add your own importance criteria if the standard rules aren't enough. And just like with risk, this criteria can be adapted to your business. For example, you can add your own rules specifying what importance deal means to you. As a result, the manager sees not just a list of deals, but a clear understanding of where the greatest potential lies and where to invest their time. After we go through all settings, let's return to the page with agent's performance results. Here you can clearly see how these settings affect the final result, which source we've added, which criteria we've set, which fields we are using. All of this directly shapes the insights the managers see. In other words, the agent doesn't just generate general analytics, it operates according to your business logic and is highly customizable to fit your sales process. Essentially, the manager opens a deal and immediately sees a ready-made analysis, risk opportunities, client context, and suggestion on what to do next. As a result, the sales team gets not just an analytical tool, but a real assistant that helps them spot risk faster, understand the client better, and move deals toward closing with greater confidence. That's it regarding Sales Close Agent. Thank you for your time and attention.